The origins of the Custodian Guard are inseparable from the Emperor's earliest days of unifying Terra, when he first conceived the need for warriors who would transcend mere genetic enhancement. In his gene laboratories beneath the Himalayan mountains, he began crafting these unique beings through a process so intricate and personalized that no two custodians would ever be identical. This marked a fundamental departure from all other transhuman projects that would follow, where Space Marines would later be created through standardized implantation protocols. Each custodian emerged from their transformation as a unique masterwork of genetic artistry. This individualized approach to their creation extended far beyond mere physical enhancement. The Emperor's vision demanded warriors whose very essence was rebuilt from the molecular level upward, standing between 9 and 10 feet tall in their ceremonial armor. These early custodians demonstrated capabilities that made even the fearsome Thunder Warriors seem primitive by comparison. Their genetic restructuring was so comprehensive that many tech priests of the era argued whether they could still be classified as human at all. The sophistication of their creation process reflected directly in their combat capabilities. Unlike the Thunder Warriors, who relied primarily on brute force and aggressive tactics, custodians displayed a level of martial finesse that seemed almost impossible for beings of their size. Their auramite armor, each suit a unique masterpiece crafted specifically for its wearer, incorporated technologies that would be lost even before the Great Crusade began. Early battle records speak of custodians moving with such fluid grace that mortal eyes could barely track their movements, their guardian spears weaving patterns of destruction through enemy ranks with surgical precision. It was amid this context of unparalleled warrior creation that Constantine Valdor emerged. Found in the gene labs of High Brazil, Valdor's potential caught the Emperor's direct attention, leading to a transformation process that took nearly a decade, extraordinarily long even by custodian standards. The investment proved worthwhile, as Valdor emerged as perhaps the finest example of what a custodian could become. His combat records during the Unification Wars, though partially sealed, tell of feats that seemed impossible even for a custodian. The defeat of 30 solar pattern automata in under a minute stands as just one example of his capabilities. The sophisticated nature of custodian creation demanded equally advanced training protocols. The fortress of Hera's earliest training halls housed Dark Age hololithic devices capable of recreating any battlefield scenario with perfect fidelity. These devices allowed custodians to face thousands of combat scenarios before ever entering real battle, honing their skills to levels of perfection that matched their genetic enhancement. This training, combined with decades of philosophical instruction, produced warriors who were as much scholars and philosophers as they were fighters. The designation 10,000 emerged during this formative period, carrying multiple layers of meaning drawn from humanity's ancient past. While the number recalled the Persian immortals of Old Terra, it also referenced the Sumerian concept of numerical perfection. Each custodian was expected to embody this ideal, becoming a living weapon of unmatched capability. Although their actual numbers fluctuated throughout the Great Crusade, the symbolism of the 10,000 became deeply ingrained in their identity. Their early combat doctrine evolved rapidly during the Unification Wars, developing far beyond their initial role as the Emperor's guards. The first recorded use of the Moritoi stance during the Caucasus Waste campaign demonstrated their tactical sophistication. A small group of custodians systematically dismantled an army of gene-enhanced rebels, their movements so precise and coordinated that witnesses struggled to describe what they had seen. This event marked the emergence of a distinctly custodian approach to warfare, one that prioritized absolute efficiency over brute force. Their mastery of individual combat techniques led to the development of specialized training methods that would become hallmarks of custodian tradition. Each warrior began developing their own fighting style, informed by both their unique physical capabilities and the requirements of protecting the emperor. These early innovations in combat doctrine gave rise to the kata, elaborate martial forms that functioned both as training exercises and actual battle techniques. Unlike the rigid combat doctrines of the later Astartes, custodian combat forms emphasized adaptability and individual expression within a framework of absolute discipline. The sophistication of their arsenal matched their fighting prowess. Each guardian spear was a testament to the height of Terran engineering, incorporating technologies that would later be lost to humanity. The weapons contained miniaturized plasma projectors, power fields of unprecedented efficiency, and targeting systems that interfaced directly with their armor's machine spirit. Even more remarkable were the Sentinel blades, rare weapons whose origins predated the Unification Wars themselves. These artifacts, each one unique, contained technologies that even the Emperor's most skilled artisans struggled to comprehend. Their relationship with the Thunder Warriors became increasingly complex as the Unification Wars progressed. While both groups served as the Emperor's elite forces, the Custodians maintained a careful psychological distance from their more volatile counterparts. This separation proved crucial during the later purge at Mount Ararat, where the Custodians' superior tactical acumen proved decisive against the physically imposing but strategically limited Thunder Warriors. This event firmly established the Custodians' role as executors of the Emperor's most sensitive directives. The creation of new Custodians required facilities of unprecedented sophistication. The Apothecarion Sublime, hidden in the deepest levels beneath the future Imperial Palace, housed gene forges that incorporated technologies from humanity's dark age. These facilities drew upon rare elements harvested from Terra's dwindling deep core mines, including metals that would become extinct by the end of the Unification Wars. Each transformation chamber was a masterpiece of biomechanical engineering, capable of implementing the Emperor's genetic modifications with microscopic precision. Their early successes led to further refinements in their creation process. The Emperor continuously improved the techniques used to create Custodians, incorporating lessons learned from each warrior's performance. This iterative approach resulted in subtle but significant improvements in their capabilities, though the fundamental principle of individual crafting remained constant. By the final years of the Unification Wars, the process of creating a Custodian had become as much an art as a science, with each warrior representing a unique interpretation of the Emperor's vision for humanity's guardians. The psychological conditioning of early Custodians set them apart from other transhuman warriors. Unlike the hypno-indoctrination used on later Space Marines, Custodian mental training focused on developing independent tactical judgment while maintaining absolute loyalty. This approach produced warriors who could think creatively in combat while never wavering from their fundamental purpose. Early training records speak of philosophical debates conducted in the midst of combat exercises, testing the warrior's ability to maintain intellectual clarity even in the most demanding physical circumstances. Their influence expanded beyond mere combat roles as the unification wars progressed. Custodians began serving as the emperor's personal emissaries to newly compliant regions, their presence carrying the weight of his direct authority. These diplomatic missions required them to develop skills far beyond warfare. They became scholars of human culture, experts in negotiation, and keen judges of political reliability. This breadth of capability would prove crucial in the coming Great Crusade, where custodians would often serve as the emperor's eyes and ears among the expanding imperial forces. The transition from Terra's unification to the Great Crusade marked a pivotal shift in custodian operations. The purge of the Thunder Warriors at Mount Ararat wasn't a simple military action. It demonstrated the custodians' capacity for complex strategic operations. They systematically isolated Thunder Warrior units using their superior tactical coordination to overcome the raw strength of their targets. The operation was carried out with such precision that most of Terra's population remained unaware of the full scope of what transpired. As the first Astartes legions emerged, the custodians maintained a careful distance. Their interactions with these new transhuman warriors were marked by professional respect, tinged with subtle wariness. This caution proved prescient. The custodians never fully integrated with the Legion command structure, preserving their independence and direct connection to the Emperor. They observed the growing rivalry between legions with increasing concern, particularly noting the psychological impact of rapid expansion on Legion culture. The Eyes of the Emperor protocol emerged from this period of observation. Selected custodians were tasked with embedding themselves within various expeditionary fleets, operating independently from the regular command structure. These observers maintained their own encrypted communication network, sharing intelligence that bypassed normal Imperial channels. Their reports helped identify early warning signs of Legion divergence from Imperial ideals, though their warnings about the warrior lodges would later prove tragically understated. During the Great Crusade, custodian deployments alongside the Emperor showcased their tactical flexibility. At Gyros Thravian, 100 custodians accompanied the Emperor against thousands of Orc war machines. Their coordinated attacks systematically dismantled the Orc leadership structure, while the Emperor engaged the Orc war boss. On Murder, custodian strike teams proved instrumental in deciphering the Megarachnids' pheromone-based combat coordination, developing countermeasures that saved countless Astartes' lives. The Companions' formation evolved directly from these combat experiences, originally consisting of the Emperor's personal guard detail. It grew into a sophisticated combat unit capable of adapting to any battlefield situation. The Companions pioneered many techniques that would become standard custodian doctrine, including the shield wall pattern deployment and the Celestial Vindicator assault formation. Their ranks included warriors like Diocletian Koros, whose precognitive combat abilities set new standards for custodian performance. When the heresy erupted, the custodians' worst fears materialized. Diocletian Koros had previously reported subtle changes in Horus's behavior during the Ulanor Crusade, shifts in tactical doctrine that emphasized overwhelming force over precision, and a growing distance from the emperor's philosophical teachings. His warnings, compiled in the Reflections on Command, detailed how Horus's strategic decisions increasingly diverged from established imperial doctrine. The defense of the Imperial Palace drew upon millennia of custodian strategic planning. Every corridor, every chamber had been designed with layered defensive possibilities. The custodians deployed their forces in rotating shifts, maintaining constant vigilance while preserving their strength. Their defensive layouts incorporated psychological warfare elements, architecture, and positioning designed to demoralize attackers before physical contact was even made. Ra and Endymion's experiences during this period provided unprecedented insights into the Emperor's true nature. During critical moments in the Webway War, Endymion received direct mental impressions from the Emperor, fragments of knowledge about humanity's potential future, and the threats that necessitated such extreme measures. These revelations, later partially recorded in the Magisterium Lex Ultima, suggested that the Emperor had foreseen aspects of the heresy, but deemed them necessary risks in humanity's evolution. The Battle of the Webway marked perhaps the custodians' greatest challenge. Fighting in dimensional space that defied normal physics, they faced both demonic entities and corrupted mechanicum forces. The custodians adapted their tactics to this impossible environment, developing new combat formations that accounted for the Webway's non-Euclidean geometry. Their losses were staggering. Hundreds of warriors fell defending sections of the Webway that had to be permanently sealed. Constantine Valdor's actions during the Siege of Terra demonstrated why he held the position of Captain General. He coordinated not just custodian forces, but also elements of the Sisters of Silence, Imperial Army, and loyal Mechanicum assets. His counterattacks exploited gaps in traitor formations with surgical precision, buying crucial time for Imperial reinforcements to arrive. Perhaps most significantly, he organized the defense of the Emperor's gene laboratories, preserving technologies and knowledge that would prove vital to the Imperium's survival. The aftermath of the heresy reshaped the custodians' entire purpose. The Edict of Retreat wasn't simply a strategic withdrawal. It represented a fundamental shift in their identity. As the Emperor lay interred within the Golden Throne, the custodians faced their greatest failure. They had kept their master alive, but at a terrible cost. The implementation of the edict occurred in stages, with shield companies gradually withdrawing from active operations throughout the Imperium. This withdrawal wasn't just physical. It represented a psychological retreat as they grappled with their perceived failure to protect the Emperor in his original form. The transformation from guardians to jailers carried a bitter irony that wasn't lost on the custodians. Their duty now extended beyond mere protection. They had to maintain constant vigilance against any attempt to interfere with the Emperor's life-sustaining machinery. The Golden Throne's mechanisms required constant monitoring, with teams of custodians working alongside the few tech priests granted the highest clearance levels. They developed intricate rotation schedules, ensuring that fresh eyes always watched both the machinery and their fellow guardians, acknowledging that potential threats could come from within as well as without. The first organization of the Vigil on the Golden Throne emerged from necessity and paranoia. The Custodians established overlapping patrol routes that never followed the same pattern twice. They installed advanced security systems that incorporated both ancient technology and psychic wards. The designation of the Sanctum Imperialis required new protocols. No single custodian, regardless of rank, could access certain areas alone. This system of checks and balances reflected their understanding that immortality often breeds complacency. The Captain General's Council arose from the need to maintain order in this new era. Without the Emperor's direct guidance, the Custodians needed a formal structure for decision-making that wouldn't compromise their independence. The Council incorporated representatives from different aspects of custodian operations, from the traditional guard to the more specialized Epheroi. Each member brought unique perspectives on security and strategy, ensuring that no single viewpoint dominated their planning. The mysterious disappearance of Constantine Valdor added another layer of complexity to this transitional period. The last confirmed sightings of Valdor coincided with several critical meetings with Robert Guilliman regarding the restructuring of the Imperium. Unlike other legendary figures who died heroic deaths or whose fates were clearly recorded, Valdor simply vanished. Some records suggest he undertook a final mission, authorized by protocols established before the Emperor's internment. Others hint at a deeper purpose, perhaps tied to contingency plans that the Emperor had set in motion. The vacuum left by Valdor's disappearance influenced the development of subsequent custodian leadership structures. The new command protocols specifically addressed the possibility of losing key leaders, establishing clear succession procedures that hadn't existed before. This period also saw the creation of the Chosen, an inner circle of custodians who maintained certain secrets, including, some whispered, information about Valdor's true mission. The custodians' withdrawal into the palace prompted a reorganization of Imperial security protocols. They established new layers of defense, incorporating both physical barriers and sophisticated surveillance systems. The palace's security grid expanded exponentially, with new subsystems that could operate independently if others were compromised. These developments reflected a growing understanding that their role now focused on preventing access to the Emperor rather than facilitating it. Changes in training protocols reflected their new reality. While custodians maintained their supreme combat capabilities, they now incorporated extensive study of defensive operations and long-term siege tactics. The emphasis shifted from offensive operations to impenetrable defense. New recruits learned not just how to fight, but how to maintain unwavering vigilance over centuries of service. This led to the development of mental conditioning techniques specifically designed to combat the potential tedium of eternal guard duty. The relationship between the custodians and other imperial organizations underwent significant changes during this period. Their withdrawal from active operations created a distance that would define their interactions for millennia to come. Even their communications with the High Lords of Terra became increasingly formal and limited, conducted through carefully established protocols that maintained their independence while acknowledging the necessary, interconnected nature of imperial governance. Building upon these fundamental changes in custodian operations, the Age of Apostasy presented unprecedented challenges to their established protocols. During Vandir's reign of blood, the custodians found themselves in an impossible position. Their oath to protect the emperor technically extended to the legitimate structure of imperial governance. Yet Vandir's corruption of these institutions created a paradox they had never faced before. They watched as the High Lord's authority eroded under Vandir's influence, carefully documenting his gradual usurpation of power while maintaining their vigilance over the Golden Throne. The custodians' response to Vandir's excesses demonstrated the wisdom of their post-heresy protocols. While they couldn't directly intervene without leaving the emperor vulnerable, they began secretly coordinating with resistance elements through carefully established channels. Their surveillance networks, originally designed to protect the palace, proved invaluable in tracking Vandir's movements and understanding the full scope of his corruption. They maintained detailed records of his activities, building a comprehensive case that would later prove crucial in legitimizing the resistance against him. The alliance with Sebastian Thor marked a rare departure from their policy of non-intervention. The custodians recognized in Thor something that reminded them of the Emperor's original vision, a combination of charisma, wisdom, and unwavering dedication to humanity's well-being. Their support of Thor's cause was subtle but crucial. They provided him with intelligence gathered through their surveillance networks and, more importantly, legitimacy through carefully worded statements that never directly endorsed rebellion but made clear their position on Vandir's corruption. The period forced significant modifications to custodian defensive protocols. The possibility that legitimate imperial authorities could become corrupted led to the implementation of new verification systems. They established additional layers of security clearance, requiring multiple forms of authentication that went beyond mere rank or authority. These changes reflected a growing understanding that threats to the emperor could come wrapped in the trappings of imperial authority. The Our Martyred Lady incident served as a turning point in custodian policy. When Sister Alicia Dominica and her companions sought audience in the emperor's presence, the custodians faced a decision that would reshape imperial history. Their choice to grant access, after extensive screening and under heavy guard, demonstrated their capacity to adapt their strict protocols when circumstances demanded it. The direct audience with the emperor, witnessed by select custodians, resulted in Sister Dominica's conviction to oppose Vandir, ultimately leading to his downfall. This event profoundly impacted custodian procedures regarding access to the emperor's presence. They developed new criteria for evaluating exceptional requests for audience, establishing a complex framework that considered both the petitioner's purpose and the potential impact on imperial stability. These protocols, known as the Dominica Protocols, would influence custodian decision-making for millennia to come. The aftermath of Vandir's fall led to further refinements in how the custodians interacted with imperial institutions. They established new monitoring systems specifically designed to detect signs of institutional corruption, drawing on their experience with how Vandir had manipulated imperial bureaucracy. These systems integrated both technological surveillance and human intelligence, creating a more comprehensive picture of potential threats to imperial stability. The lessons learned during the Age of Apostasy directly shaped how the custodians would organize their forces over the following millennia. Shield companies evolved from simple tactical units into highly specialized formations, each dedicated to specific aspects of palace defense. The Shadow Keepers, for instance, emerged from the need to guard the palace's deepest vaults, where threats from humanity's dark past lay imprisoned. Their training emphasized resistance to psychological warfare, as many of their charges attempted to corrupt their guardians through subtle psychic influence. The Taranatoi Shield Company developed in response to increasingly sophisticated technological threats. After a rogue Magos attempted to breach the palace's inner sanctums using phase-shifted servitors in M33, these specialists began incorporating advanced counter-mechanicum warfare into their standard protocols. Their distinctive dull bronze armor contained additional radiation shielding and EMP-hardened systems that could continue functioning even under extreme technological attacks. Each shield company developed its own martial techniques, building upon the foundational kata forms while adapting to specific threats. The Aquilan Guard perfected methods of defending against psychic attacks after a series of attempts by rogue psychers to breach the palace's defenses in M34. Their distinctive helical combat patterns, when performed by a full squad, could disrupt even the most powerful psychic manifestations. These techniques proved vital during the Second Palace incursion, when a cabal of rogue psychers attempted to mentally dominate the Outer Palace guards. The practice of granting names and titles to custodians evolved beyond mere tradition. Each name carried meaning derived from ancient Terran languages, often incorporating references to mythological guardians or legendary protectors. A custodian's name would grow longer with their service, accumulating honorifics that reflected specific achievements or duties. Aquilian Rakernathor, for instance, earned the suffix Silence's Echo after single-handedly preventing a demonic incursion without triggering a single palace alarm, maintaining absolute operational secrecy. The integration of new technologies proved particularly challenging as the Mechanicum's understanding of ancient systems degraded. When the original Palace Void Shield generators began failing in M35, the custodians faced a critical decision. The replacement systems offered by the Mechanicum provided superior power output, but required modifications to the palace's original architecture. After extensive testing, they opted to maintain the ancient systems, dedicating an entire shield company to mastering their maintenance. This decision proved prescient during the Nova Terra Interregnum, when newer defensive systems proved vulnerable to specialized tech warfare. Throughout their long vigil, the custodians neutralized countless threats that never made it into official Imperial records. In M36, a shape-shifting Yuvath infiltrator managed to penetrate 17 layers of palace security before being detected. The incident led to the development of new detection protocols incorporating both technological and psychological screening. The more subtle threats often proved the most dangerous, like the seemingly loyal palace servitor whose binary cont contained encoded messages to sleeper agents, discovered only after 3 centuries of service. The Selenar conspiracy of M38 highlighted how even ancient allies could become threats. A group of gene wrights from Luna's ancient cloning facilities attempted to gain access to the Emperor's gene laboratories, claiming authority from fabricated first founding documents. The attempt failed, but led to a complete overhaul of authentication protocols for all organizations claiming historical privileges. This included the implementation of genetic markers in official documentation that could be traced to specific founding periods. Building upon millennia of established tradition, the time of ending brought unprecedented changes to custodian operations. Guillaume Valoris's appointment as Captain General reflected the custodians' recognition that changing times demanded adaptive leadership. Valoris earned his position through demonstrations of both martial prowess and strategic insight, notably during the Chronos Strife, when rival Time Lords attempted to breach the palace using temporal manipulation. His handling of the crisis showed an ability to balance traditional custodian protocols with tactical innovation. The return of Robot Guilliman sent shockwaves through the custodian ranks. Their extensive records of the Primarch's original tactical doctrines allowed them to confirm his identity through subtle details no imposter could have known. During initial meetings, Valoris engaged Guilliman in detailed discussions about sealed Imperial records from the Great Crusade era, using conversational patterns developed specifically for verifying identity claims from that period. The Primarch's responses matched archived behavior patterns perfectly. Guilliman's initial assessment of the custodians revealed both approval and concern. While he praised their maintained combat readiness, he questioned the extent of their self-imposed isolation. This led to tense discussions within the Shield Captain's Council, where traditional isolationists clashed with those who saw the necessity for broader engagement. The debates often centered around specific historical precedents, with both sides citing incidents from the Age of Apostasy to support their positions. The Primarch's reforms met initial resistance from conservative elements within the custodian hierarchy. However, Valoris recognized the strategic necessity of adaptation. The Shield Captain's Council underwent restructuring to incorporate new tactical requirements while preserving their core defensive duties. They established new protocols for external operations that maintained their independence while allowing for coordinated action with other Imperial forces. The first large-scale custodian deployments since the heresy required extensive logistical preparation. Their ancient void vessels, maintained but largely unused for millennia, needed significant updates to interface with modern Imperial navigation systems. The Shield Captain's Council developed new combat doctrines that adapted their individual fighting styles to larger unit actions. These deployments revealed that their combat effectiveness hadn't diminished. During the Chaos incursion on Hydrafor, a single custodian shield company neutralized a warband that had previously overwhelmed 3 Space Marine chapters. The formation of the emissaries Imperatus marked perhaps the most significant departure from traditional custodian doctrine. These warriors received specialized training in diplomatic protocols while maintaining their combat capabilities. Their armor incorporated subtle modifications, diplomatic seals, and marks of authority that could be recognized across different Imperial organizations. Each emissary underwent intensive study of local customs and power structures in their assigned sectors, ensuring they could navigate complex political situations without compromising their authority. The new deployment patterns revealed previously untested aspects of custodian capabilities. Their individual combat styles, honed over centuries of practice in the palace's training grounds, proved remarkably effective in actual battlefield conditions. During the Peste Arcanum campaign, custodian tactics successfully countered Death Guard strategies that had proven devastating against conventional Space Marine formations. Their ability to adapt centuries of theoretical training to practical combat situations exceeded even Guilliman's expectations. The success of initial external deployments led to a comprehensive reorganization of custodian shield companies, each developing highly specialized roles while maintaining their core defensive capabilities. The Theranatoi Shield Company expanded their expertise in technological warfare, incorporating lessons learned from encounters with Dark Mechanicum forces during the Plague Wars. Their distinctive bronze-black armor now houses specialized etheric field generators that can disrupt enemy machine spirits at close range. The Aquilon Guard refined their anti-psyker techniques through practical experience against Thousand Suns sorcerers, developing new variations of the kata forms specifically designed for disrupting complex psychic rituals. Their success during the Battle of the Psychnuian Towers demonstrated how traditional palace defense techniques could be adapted for offensive operations. Each squad now carries modified Silencium pattern null rods, allowing them to create overlapping fields of psychic dampening. The Shadowkeepers maintain the dark cells beneath the Imperial Palace, where horrors from humanity's past remain imprisoned. Their duties require specialized knowledge of containment protocols for entities that defy normal physics. Recent breaches during the Noctis Aeterna led to modifications in their equipment loadout. Their armor now incorporates phase-shifted null field generators, allowing them to engage entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. Martial katas evolved beyond their original training purposes into comprehensive combat philosophies. The Percussus kata, focused on precise striking patterns, draws inspiration from ancient Terran martial arts that predate the Unification Wars. When performed by a full custodian squad, these movements create deadly geometric patterns that can systematically dismantle enemy formations. During the defense of Leon's Gate, 5 custodians using the Percussus kata held off hundreds of World Eater's berserkers by turning a narrow corridor into a killing ground of precisely calculated angles and counterstrikes. The philosophical foundations of these combat forms extend beyond mere martial application. The Conservae kata emphasizes the preservation of strength through efficient movement, reflecting the custodian's broader mission of maintaining vigilance over millennia. Practitioners study historical battles where endurance proved more crucial than raw combat power. The kata's influence appears in everything from patrol patterns to equipment maintenance schedules. Tribune prefects serve as tactical coordinators, their role expanding significantly since the implementation of Guilliman's reforms. Each prefect maintains real-time strategic oversight of multiple shield companies, coordinating their movements through encrypted noospheric links. During the Hexarchy's attempted coup, Tribune Prefect Orthus synchronized the responses of 3 separate shield companies across different palace sections without a single spoken command, demonstrating the effectiveness of their enhanced command protocols. Integration with the Sisters of Silence produced new tactical possibilities that neither organization had previously explored. The combination of custodian martial prowess with the Sisters' null abilities created unprecedented anti-psyker capabilities. Joint training exercises in the palace's brass valleys led to the development of the Null Spear formation. Sisters creating channels of psychic nullification through which custodians could launch devastating attacks against warp-empowered enemies. Modern deployment doctrine emphasizes tactical flexibility while maintaining the custodians' traditional role as the Emperor's Praetorians. Shield companies now maintain rapid response protocols that allow them to deploy beyond Terra when specific threats warrant their intervention. The Prosperine Censure demonstrated this new approach when a shield company intercepted and eliminated a Thousand Suns' attempt to access sealed pre-heresy archives on Mars, coordinating perfectly with local Mechanicum forces while maintaining operational security. Speaking about their refined deployment strategies, the Custodians' equipment represents some of the finest examples of Imperial technological achievement. The Auramite saga begins in the laboratories beneath the Imperial Palace, where the Emperor himself developed this unique alloy. Unlike standard Auramite used in later armor patterns, true Auramite incorporates trace elements of materials now extinct on Terra. The few remaining original Auramite suits, preserved from the Great Crusade era, display unique properties that even the Mechanicum's most advanced forges cannot replicate. Molecular bonding patterns that seem to adapt to incoming energy weapons, dispersing their force across the entire armor surface. Every piece of custodian war gear receives its own name, earned through its performance in battle. The spear, Transcendent Sorrow, gained its designation after its bearer held the Eternity Gate alone for 17 hours during an attempted infiltration by Alpha Legion operatives. The weapon's machine spirit displayed unprecedented accuracy during the engagement, anticipating and countering every attempt at deception by the shapeshifted infiltrators. These names aren't merely honorifics, they're recorded in extensive databases that track each weapon's complete operational history. Custodian weaponry underwent subtle but significant changes across the millennia. Early Guardian spears incorporated Dark Age technologies that proved impossible to replicate after the heresy. The Mark III Praetorian pattern, used during the Great Crusade, contained miniaturized plasma projectors that could maintain continuous fire for hours without heat buildup. Modern variants compensate for this lost technology through enhanced targeting systems and modified power field generators that create localized disruption effects in addition to their primary cutting function. The Apollonian spear stands as perhaps the most significant custodian relic still in active service. Created using technologies personally developed by the Emperor, it incorporates capabilities that even its wielders don't fully understand. During the Third Palace incursion, the spear demonstrated an ability to nullify warp manifestations through methods that defied traditional physical laws. Its power field operates on principles that differ fundamentally from standard Imperial technology, leading some tech priests to speculate that it incorporates understanding from the Dark Age that the Emperor never shared with the Mechanicum. Different armor marks reflect various periods in custodian history and specialized combat roles. The Aquilon pattern, favored by the Companions, features additional layers of psychoreactive circuitry that enhances the wearer's reaction time by microseconds. The Cataphractoi pattern, developed after encounters with Chaos Titans during the Heresy, incorporates scaled-down versions of Void Shield technology, allowing the wearer to survive direct hits from weapon systems designed to target vehicles. The Alaris Terminator armor represents the pinnacle of custodian protection, each suit virtually irreplaceable. Unlike standard Terminator plate, these suits maintain almost the same freedom of movement as regular custodian armor. The inner layers contain networks of nanoscale servo assisters that respond directly to the wearer's nervous system, eliminating the traditional sluggishness associated with Terminator armor. During the Battle of Leon's Gate, an Alaris-equipped custodian performed a complete combat role while under fire from multiple heavy weapons, a maneuver that should have been physically impossible in traditional Terminator plate. Shield Captain armor incorporates additional command and control systems, many dating back to the Great Crusade. These suits contain specialized cogitator arrays that can process battlefield data from multiple sources simultaneously, presenting tactical options through direct neural interface. The armor worn by Shield Captain Tyvar during the siege of the Eternity Gate contained analytical systems so advanced they could predict enemy movement patterns seconds before they occurred, allowing for seemingly impossible counterattacks. The sophistication of custodian equipment directly influences theories about Constantine Valdor's disappearance. Several recovered data logs from the late Heresy period suggest Valdor accessed deeply classified sections of the Imperial Palace's archives before vanishing. These sections contained information about pre-imperial technology that even senior custodians weren't cleared to access. Recent investigations by the Shadow Keepers uncovered evidence that Valdor might have discovered something in those archives about hidden threats to the Emperor's grand plan, threats that required handling outside official Imperial channels. Scattered reports across the millennia place Valdor in locations that seem impossibly distant from each other. A rogue trader dynasty claims their founder encountered him in the Ghoul Stars, investigating ancient human settlements that predated the Age of Strife. Meanwhile, Mechanicum expeditions in the Segmentum Tempestus discovered sealed vaults bearing his personal seal, containing technology that shouldn't have existed when he disappeared. These conflicting accounts suggest either an organized effort to conceal his true mission, or the possibility that what people encountered wasn't Valdor himself, but agents operating under his direction. Guilliman's reforms created unprecedented challenges for traditional custodian operations. While their primary duty to the Emperor remains unchanged, increased external deployment has forced adaptations in their training and organizational structure. Shield companies now maintain dedicated rapid response units capable of deploying anywhere in the Imperium within days. This capability was demonstrated during the Plague Wars, when custodian forces arrived on Iax hours before a major Death Guard assault, having calculated the attack pattern based on their analysis of Nurgle's tactical tendencies. The expansion of custodian operations beyond Terra has revealed unexpected benefits and risks. Their presence in various war zones provides direct intelligence about threats to the Golden Throne, unfiltered by bureaucratic channels. However, each deployment requires careful balance. Every custodian sent to external operations means one fewer defender in the palace. This has led to the development of new rotation protocols, ensuring that no shield company remains deployed externally long enough to lose familiarity with palace defense patterns. Questions about actual custodian numbers have intensified since their increased visibility across the Imperium. While the traditional 10,000 designation persists, careful analysis of deployment patterns suggests their numbers might be considerably higher. During the Indomitus Crusade, custodian forces were simultaneously recorded operating in 12 different sectors, each deployment involving substantial numbers. Yet reports from Terra indicate no noticeable reduction in palace security during this period. The integration of Primaris gene seed technology has raised questions about potential modifications to custodian creation processes. While Cowell's developments don't directly apply to custodian genecraft, their success has prompted research into combining ancient custodian enhancement techniques with more recent innovations. Several shield companies have established dedicated research facilities, working alongside carefully vetted Magos biologies to explore possibilities while maintaining absolute secrecy about core custodian biological enhancement methods. Recent encounters with Dark Age technology during external operations have provided new insights into the Emperor's original vision for the custodians. Archaeological discoveries in the Nephilim sector revealed sealed caches of technology bearing marks similar to those used in early custodian equipment. These findings suggest the Emperor might have planned for the custodians to eventually take on roles beyond mere protection, perhaps as guides for humanity's technological redevelopment once certain conditions were met. As Terra's defenses face increasingly sophisticated threats and the galaxy enters ever more turbulent times, the 10,000 stand ready, adapting their ancient duties to meet new challenges while maintaining their core mission, protecting humanity's last, best hope for survival.